Improving children's mental and physical health. Hello and welcome to another English podcast with Paul. I'm your host, Paul. And as always, unscripted, unedited, natural, native conversation. And my accent is a Bristol accent, slightly Bristol, but also a British accent. I have some notes, so you may see me looking down. I have the laptop on for other additional information, just to confer with some studies, some things I'd like to read out loud to you. Right, improving children's mental and physical health. So I thought this would be an interesting subject or topic to discuss and unpack, because in the West here and probably in some other very developed countries, you will see some more children that are getting a little bit heavier than generations ago, generations before. So it is kind of becoming accepted that some children are a bit heavier than other children. But in general, we don't like to see big, heavy-set, overweight children. That kind of feels bad and wrong. And another aspect is about nature and health, mental health of children. We all now understand a lot of the trauma and the issues and the problems that we went through as children. And we can see our children and children that we look after or children we care about going through similar situations. So, for example, there's more divorce now than what there ever used to be. There's more probably car accidents now. There seems to be more trauma and obviously around the world it feels like a small world that is happening. Lots of things are happening. You've got the war in Ukraine, you've got the pandemic, you've got other issues around the world and climate change, and all these things are upsetting, not just to us, but to our children, and reasons why they can't do this and why we can't let them do that. All these things have an impact over time with our children. So trying to be more educated ourselves as adults, we try to give our children a better life than we had ourselves. And one way to do that, we believe, is to help our children be happy and healthy on a mental level and a physical level. So that's why we're looking into improving your children's mental health. Right, so what I like to do, I like to give some validation and some credence to what my perspective is or some of the views. And in this case, we're looking at studies. All right. So there's been numerous studies over the years about children's health and well-being and about how they're impacted, whether it be through trauma, whether it be through schools, whether it be through social and economic differences. Many of these things have an impact. But most of these studies have a lot of similarities. And some of the key things they talk about is about spending time outside. That comes up time and time again for the health and well-being of children, is that they always recommend they should spend more time outside. Now, I'm sure that you will agree that as children ourselves, at some point, we spend a lot more time outside, running around, playing, doing stuff with the other local children and doing stuff in our communities. And our lives were very different. And as you know, now we have many children and teenagers and people in general just connected and glued to their devices, whether it's educational or not. It just kind of feels wrong deep down that these people are preferring to have a device in front of them tablet, a phone, whatever, and less connected to the people around them, less connected to the world around them. You know, they're less aware of what's going on. So not just about the traffic or the trees or the people or the buildings. So less connected and aware. But also we're getting sucked into these devices, these devices that often have a dopamine hit, have a hormonal or a psychological positive effect for short-term gratification. Like this button, buy now, click here, do this, get a higher score, get better at this. A lot of these devices and the applications are very well organized and built in an architectural way to be addictive, to be compelling, to be more desirable than your outdoor and surrounding nature and world. They're competing for time, the time of your child, the time of yourself, you know, and to stay connected for one purpose. And that one purpose is generally advertising. So they can sell you something when you're in the zone, when you're looking at this, when you're looking at that. And now you're constantly staring at this screen, being shown adverts to buy all sorts of stuff you don't need. So this whole perspective is pushed at you from somebody with an alternative agenda to make money from you, because you know that our data is knowledge, and knowledge is power. So the data becomes valuable. So if they know your child likes this game and this color and this sound, you know, they are much more likely to be able to make another game or product or a thing that your child is likely to click on and want to buy. So from a young age, we are being manipulated again by corporations that want to sell us adverts. So to combat this, to stop this in its tracks, something we can all do is encourage our children to spend more time outdoors. And I'm not the first one to say it. Many people have been saying it for a long, long time. You know, so these studies, they have the same theme about being disconnected from devices and start being reconnected with nature and the environment around them. They talk about spending time outside. They talk about the freedom to make mistakes. You know, how many times has a child come up to you and said they stung themselves on a stinging nettle and it hurts? But then after maybe 4 or 5 times, they kind of forget about it. They move on. My daughter, for example, used to sting herself and not even say anything about it after the 100th time. Freedom to take risks. So like on the monkey bars, on the on the playground, you know, with the frames that they'll be clambering all over. Actually, you know, trying and stretching and jumping and falling, you know, having a grazed knee and falling and learning. All this is just constant learning about their bodies, about their environment. That is taken away when a child is glued to a device, when all they can do is want to play their video game on their phone or on a tablet. So these studies all have the same answers: to get outside, do stuff. But what can we do? What other things can we do than just read these studies and try to get the kids outside? All right. So as we know, children get bored very, very quickly. How can we help? How can we combat that? All right. So one way before we physically get involved would be to have a school that's more focused on activities and outdoors and sports. So that's one area where you can start helping your child becoming a better rounded person and a more connected to humanity, is by giving them a head start with a school that is focused on sports. Or even better, a Montessori school or a Rudolf Steiner school, where they constantly promote curiosity and fun and engagement, connection with the world around them. Even whether it's planting a tomato seed and then growing that tomato and then picking that tomato, cutting that tomato, cooking that tomato, and eating that tomato. A whole cycle of education and learning just through something basic and simple as growing a tomato. In schools like the Waldorf school or Steiner school, what you want to call it, and the Montessori schools and countless other alternative schools, that is becoming more and more prevalent to learn skills and less about knowledge. Knowledge is freely accessible on the internet. And so it's the skills and the connection with nature and people that are more important now. Logic, learning. Okay. Right. So some of the other things we could do to promote this would be parent-led birthday parties. You know, we have a birthday party every year for the children. Not everybody does, but it's fairly common. Things that we could do here in the UK, for example, is go to like Diggerland. And that's where they have these JCBs that are put on a site with lots of safe things around and lots of controls in place so nobody can get hurt. And the children can play in these JCBs and these other machineries by moving handles and seeing what happens at the end of the handle through hydraulics. And again, this is all very good learning and understanding, having this play date or birthday date at somewhere like Diggerland, where they're playing with a JCB or a digger. There are lots of other fun farms as well, where you can go along and see milking a cow. You can see how a farm is run. You can be involved with nature and maybe look at a combine harvester or other farm paraphernalia and equipment in a safe, controlled environment. Often they're prepared for birthday parties as well, you know, and sometimes they'll bring out an animal, maybe a bird, or they'll bring out some sheep and things like that, and you can feed the baby lambs, that kind of thing. It's very, very good for children to get involved and connect with nature. Maybe they could even play with the chickens, feed chickens and ducks, things like that. And then there's another one that's very famous in my part of the country. It's called Creely Play Adventure. And again, a very similar sort of thing. There's some animals there. There's some fun attractions and rides. Yeah, just lots and lots of things to do. Big play areas. And many families go there for the whole day. You go there in the morning, maybe take a picnic, and then you have a great time and eat ice cream and play on all the rides and see all the animals and watch all the shows. Amazing, amazing place to go. Creely Adventure Park. Google it. See if there's something similar in your area, in your country. I'm sure there's something similar. I had a thought then about the fun farm in Creely, but we'll get back to that. Okay, so the next thing I was going to talk about would be like forest schools and sports clubs. You know, in my country we have like Girl Guides and rainbows, and then we have like the Cubs and the Scouts. You know, you might have seen Dib Dib Dib, Dob Dob Dob, that kind of thing on TV. So many schools are connected with a Scouts group or Cubs group or some other extracurricular activity, some activity that's outside of the school but slightly connected. So often the Cubs would go away for weekends camping or going up into the woods and learning about the forest and things like that. And then some schools also have a forest school where they have one lesson, maybe a couple of hours or an afternoon, where they go up into the woods and they learn about the woods and about the trees and about the animals and also about some safety aspects and things like that, which is really, really good. You know, some of these big groups like the Scouts and the Girl Guides are nationally recognized. They also have them in other countries like Australia and America, scouts and Girl Guides, that kind of thing. Really good for the community, part of the community connecting with younger people are helping the community, doing all sorts of things, maybe selling cookies, or they might be putting on a show. And sometimes we have parades in my part of the country. What do we call them? We call them carnival, a carnival. So it'd be like a long procession, maybe a mile long, going all the way through the town. And then another night it would go through another town. And there's competitions and things like that. So often there'll be what we call floats, like a big carnival trailer all decorated with a theme. Lots of lights and music. And then often you'll get the majorettes or you get the scouts. And then you get other organizations like maybe the fire service. The fire service will join in with this parade to raise awareness or collect money and things like this. So that's the kind of processions we have that are sometimes included with the scouts and the Girl Guides and the majorettes and things like that. So groups and clubs outside of school, really, really good for helping the children become much more social, much more engaged, much more aware, much more open to different types of situations and different types of people. All right, so the next bit. So yeah, I said about going out to Creely and other adventure places. Now, we can't all do that every weekend because it costs money. You know, we can't all afford to go out to these places that may cost 10, 15 pounds, you know, for the day. But there are other things you can do. Like like you can go to the beach. If you're near a beach, you can go to the beach. You probably already do this. But make it a much more engaging practice than just sitting down and giving your child a phone to play with, you know. Just by buying a cheap bucket and spade will keep your child entertained for hours. But if you engage with your child and make a great big sandcastle with a moat around it, or you build something else on the sand with your child, walk along the sand. Maybe you're picking up shells. Maybe you're going to make something when you get home and be more crafty and creative and glue stuff together and build something. That is another way of being really engaged with your child to understand the beach and lots of the educational aspects of the beach, but connecting away from a device. And then again, you can go to the forest, you can go to the woods and do lots of activities with your child yourself, even if it's just walking the dog, connecting with your child about the different types of trees or the different types of safety aspects and the rules of the forest, you know, like shutting the gates behind you and things like that, and not having fires in unsafe areas, that kind of thing. And you can do the same thing at the park. You can just go to the park with your child, engage with your child, have a picnic, and then engage on maybe for an educational level, talk about all the sports that you could do there at the park, what you're not allowed to do at the park, who else is enjoying the park, just that whole community. In where I live in the UK, the parks are a really, really great resource that everybody uses. Teenagers playing their music and hanging out, and then you've got elderly people reading a book and going for a gentle walk, and then you've got mothers, the pushchairs and babies going to the play areas. You've got groups of people that are in maybe in the care sector, taking out people that are from the care home just to get some exercise and enjoy the park. You've got other families feeding the ducks. There's a lot of activity going on in the park when we have good weather in the UK. And it's not just about the park. Also, you've got things in the UK like the library service. Again, it's a free service. You can borrow books, you can borrow DVDs, you can get involved with challenges and games. You can become connected with other groups, learning languages or learning more about health or even mental health. All sorts of things going on at the library. Really big community resource that's free. It's amazing. It's amazing. I really, really appreciate our library system. All right. Other things that children can get involved with, depending on the age of your child, obviously, depends on what they might be interested in or not interested in. But for many age groups, some of these things will be applicable. So we have things like gardening. Many children at lots of ages enjoy gardening, especially if they can eat and cook what they've grown. It really does help connect the child. Like, oh, tomato on my pizza, really makes a difference to get them to connect with it. Cycling. We see groups of families cycling around the park or on skateboards or on rollerblades, things like this. But also groups of people cycling on the main road, teenagers with their parents, and then joining cycling groups. Horse riding. Horse riding is very popular in the UK, especially in the villages. You'll see lots of people with high vis and a helmet on, walking their horse around the back streets of the villages. And then often they will go off on a hack, go out on a hack where they go across fields and go a little bit faster and just different terrain, and really enjoy being with the horse and connecting with nature, regardless of the weather. Many horse people will go out in all sorts of weathers. And then you've got other things that maybe I'm not quite as interested in, like fishing. Fishing with your children or fishing with another person can be very relaxing and enjoyable. Again, closer to nature and not often caring about the weather. So fishing could be a good thing that you can connect. More often it's boys than girls. Nature scavenger hunt. So that's having some paper and with some examples or pictures or questions on it to engage with the person, the young person, as to what they find in nature, whether it's going to be some leaves, some bugs, maybe like a caterpillar or ladybird, or a pine cone, or anything else that you may find in nature that the child can maybe look at and recognize and identify and tick it off on their sheet, that kind of thing. So that's like a nature scavenger hunt. There are other types of scavenger hunt. There's a back garden scavenger hunt. So if you're not going out anywhere or you can't get out, then you can do a scavenger hunt in your own back garden. Whether you've prepared a sheet of paper, or it could be just a treasure hunt where you've hidden some sweets, or in packets, I assume, or some other goodies in treats hidden around your garden to get your child to go hunting for them around the garden to get them connected with the garden more and outside and some fresh air, moving their bodies. Parkour. Now, if you don't know what parkour or free running is, that's the craze that's been sweeping the nations for the last sort of demi-decade. And it's been people or young people, mostly teenagers, jumping over walls or jumping over objects and impressing their skills on each other by learning to really control their body movements to a very, very fine degree. Interesting. You can watch a lot of it on YouTube. Often they practice in gyms where you have a safe place to practice. It's like a foam pit full of lots of soft landings, very safe, but it may cost money to start with. All right. Toy exchange. So there's a thing where you can go to a village hall on a particular day and exchange your toys with other people's toys, just to mix it up and match it up. Or you can do this with a neighbor or a family member. If you have a family member of maybe children that are a little bit older than your children, maybe they'd like to swap some toys or just, I don't know, play with different toys for a while. That'd be interesting. Dens and forts. So we have things like you get a bit of rope and you tie it from one tree to another tree. Or if it's in your house, you could tie it from the sofa across to another chair and then put a blanket over it. And then you can have some fairy lights inside, and maybe you can have a little snack inside with your child, and that'd be like indoor camping. You could take this all the way to the other extreme and have a picnic in your back garden and then camp the night in your back garden. So you have a whole themed outdoor adventure in your own back garden. You could do that once a month. That'd be really exciting and interesting and engaging with your child. Not to say it'd also tire your child out. And a tired child is a more cooperative child. We'll come on to that later. Outdoor day. Oh yeah, I was just saying about your back garden. Or if you went out somewhere to a park, you could cook, clean, play games, and even sleep in your garden. Yeah. Invite the neighbours over as well. Maybe you have a barbecue in your back garden, but you also do the cleaning in the back garden, and then you potter around your back garden, and then eventually you go to sleep in your back garden. That sounds very exciting. Bit hard work for the parents. An activities jar. When you run out of ideas and thoughts, undo the lid and pick out one of the mysterious activities. Maybe something I've mentioned before. But there's tons and tons of things you can do if you get a little bit of creativity and a little bit organized. Lots and lots of activities you can do outdoors with your children to get them disconnected from their mobile phones or their tablets. All right then. But why get your children outside may seem obvious, but in case you just needed a bit more convincing, as I said just now, a tired child is a more cooperative child. This is true, I speak from experience. Deeper sleep for your child and your child's REM sleep and your child's ability for their brain to and subconscious to unpack and work through all the new learning things that happened during the day. Quality time bonding with your child, as it is as it addresses the balance. Yeah. So sometimes if you had a bad few days and your child has maybe caught the brunt of it, having an activity day will help balance and understand in your child's head that some days are bad, but some days are good. Some days are really good. Having that balance really does help the child become a more balanced adult. Not just knowing about the bad days, but really, really enjoying those good days. All right. The more your child spends time outside, minimizes the chance of being overweight in the future. So yeah, that might not be obvious, but there's a lot of studies to show that spending time on devices and spending time indoors really is a precursor to your child getting used to being sat down for long periods of time and potentially gaining weight and not enjoying or not wanting to get involved with exercise. So that kind of seems a bit obvious. Some of the other benefits I've got on the laptop here. Playing outdoors allows your children to develop self-confidence. That's not thought about much, is it? Self-confidence, independence and self-esteem. They're also aware of their limits and their boundaries. You know, often many children have very little or no fear at all. All right, and jumping from trees and playing around in the garden, that really helps them to be aware of what they can and cannot do at every age. So playing outdoors, really positive on a mental level for the children. When children are used to playing outdoors, they are more likely to try new activities. Okay, that's interesting. Engage with others, yeah, because you need that in the future. You need to be able to communicate and connect and accept different types of personalities in the future when you're working or as a business person. It's an invaluable skill, engaging with others. And if you've already been doing outside and cooperating, playing games together, then that's a real big bonus. Solving problems, yeah, problem solving. I mentioned this in a previous video about Elon Musk and Synthesis, the new school that he started, where it's much more about not what the employer wants, but more about what's uh, important for the individual. Problem solving, logic, and connecting with other human beings and working together. All right, check out that video. Exploring the natural environment. Okay, yeah, they're much more likely to want to go out and explore the world, let alone their local environment. Make new friends, yeah, that goes without saying. Show resilience. Okay, so that's not something we talk much about, but if you're playing outdoors and you fall over and you scrape your knee or you get stung by a stinging nettle, you're much more likely to get up and carry on and move forward and build resilience because of you're with peers or because it's normal and you're outside and it happens regularly. Then that resilience, not just physically but mentally, is definitely another bonus to help your child as they grow. Doing physical exercise every day. Children experience rapid and different physical and psychological changes. These changes influence their behavior and health and well-being. So it can help reduce the chances of, as I said before, obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. So like I said before, it's a precursor to what could be the future. So it's very important to really try and get your kids outside, engaged with nature, engaged with other people, and just being curious and being children. It seems very obvious, but these devices and electronics are becoming more and more prevalent in our modern society. So we need to be responsible adults and take charge. We need to monitor and reduce and minimize the connection and the amount of time our children spend with these devices. Is not a good thing, not on the long period and not for the future of children. Okay, so if you have any thoughts, any ideas, and you disagree with what I said, put something down in the comments. Let's have a conversation about this. So that's it for today. Thanks for listening. And as always, have fun learning. If you don't have fun, you won't learn. Okay, take care and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.